Om Shri Matre Namaha. Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chaitanyam Shashwatam Shantam Vyomatītam Niranjanam Nādabindu Kalātītam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Brahmanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvātītam Gagana-sadrisham Tattvamasya-adhilakshayam Ekam nityam vimalamachalam Sarvadhi sakshibhutam Bhavatītam trigunarahitam Sadgurum tam namami. Om Jnani Namapi Chetamsi Devi Bhagavati Hisa Balada Krishya Mohaya Mahamaya Prayachati Sarvamangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanyai Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Sharanagadinartha Paritrana Parayane Sarvasyarti Hare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Namaschandikaya. Dedicated to the Mother alone. We continue with our reading of Tripura Rahasya. This is the quest of Parashuram and the grace of Gurudeva Dattatreya. Homage to the absolute reality, the source and the embodiment of bliss, the supreme consciousness, here termed as she, the mother, who is both the magnificent image of the universe and the mirror in which this dazzling reflection appears. The sage Haritayan asked, "O Narad, have you listened carefully to the canto extolling the glory of the absolute reality known as Tripura? Just listening to it is one of the most definite means of achieving liberation. I will now tell you the wondrous Jnanakhand of Tripura Rahasya. After listening to it attentively, a sadhak is no longer subject to grief." This philosophy was developed after studying the Vedas, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktism, and Pashupata. There is no other philosophy that can be comprehended by the intellect as easily as this, which Dattatreya taught to Parashurama. The teaching imparted here is based on logic and reasoning. If, after receiving this knowledge, a person still does not comprehend it, he is indeed unfortunate. And now I shall narrate the knowledge expressed in this canto of the Tripura Rahasya. The behavior of the enlightened ones is beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. That is the reason why a sage like you delights in these stories filled with wisdom, and a musk deer emanates its fragrance. Similarly, such enlightened sage influence the life of many, particularly those who are on the path. Parshuram heard the Mahatmya Khand from the mouth of Dattatreya. Parshuram's heart was purified, overwhelmed by divinity, utterly calm and tranquil. His attention became one-pointed and inward for a while. And this Mahatmya Khand of Tripura Rahasya is Lalitopakhyan, which includes the Lalita Sahasranam and Durga Saptashati. Listening to these glories of Divine Mother, overwhelmed by divinity, utterly calm and tranquil, his attention became one pointed and inward for a while. He then regained normal awareness. Tears flowed from his eyes, and his body vibrated, for his heart was overflowing with spiritual bliss. His heart was not able to contain that overwhelming bliss. With all humility, he prostrated at his Guru's lotus feet. When Parshuram gained awareness, he spontaneously uttered, O Gurudev, through your grace, I am blessed. I am blessed. You, the ocean of compassion, Shiva himself, have blessed me. Your blessings are incomparable. When the Gurudev is pleased, there is no difference between mortality and immortality. I consider that I have received the mystery and attained the essential knowledge of Mother Divine, Tripura, by your grace. O Lord, from you I have known the mysterious knowledge of Mother Divine and received her grace. I want to dedicate myself to the Mother of the universe. Please show me the way of devotion. Dattatreya observed that Parshuram was fully prepared and endowed with firm faith and devotion. So he initiated him step by step into the worship of Tripura. One auspicious day, Parshuram received the initiation of Tripura, that which leads to the highest. As a honeybee collects nectar from various flowers, Parshurama gathered from his master all the means and methods of sadhana. Overwhelmed with joy, he received permission from his master to return to the mountains to perfect the science of Tripura. He circumambulated his master with reverence, took his leave, and went to the mountain called Mahendra. There he built a beautiful and comfortable shelter and engaged in sadhana for 12 years. While following his daily sadhana, he devoted himself to worship, mantra japa, and meditation on the goddess Tripura with one pointed mind. 12 years passed as if in a moment. Then, one day, while sitting cheerfully, Parshuram began thinking. Long ago, while the sage Samvart and I were walking together, Samvart answered my question about the glory of Tripura. At that time, I did not understand the significance of his words. I completely forgot what he said, so I could not confirm it by asking my Gurudev. I requested my master Dattatreya to reveal to me the mystery of the universe, the true nature of Goddess Tripura. He considered my question irrelevant and ignored it, so my question remains unanswered. I do not know the secret of the universe. From where did this vast universe appear? How can it exist? And where will it rest after its final dissolution? Everything seems to be unstable. How can a relationship with any impermanent object last? All worldly activities seem confusing and mysterious. The behavior of the ignorant is like the blind following the blind. My own life is an example of this. I do not remember what happened in my childhood at all. I was a different person as an adolescent, still another person in my youth, and now my behavior is completely different. What the result of all those changes is, I do not know, nor do I understand the cause of the relationship underlying changes, nor do I remember what happened at what time and by what means. Has anyone ever received what he really wanted from his so called right actions? Has anyone ever attained happiness from action? Did anyone ever become happy? These were the questions that Parshurama had. Whatever a person thinks he wants is not his desired object at all, because after obtaining it, he suddenly wants something different. If one has attained the fruits, then why does he desire the fruits again? I see that everyone is doing his duty for the purpose of obtaining the fruits. The fruits can neither give freedom from sorrow nor bestow happiness. As long as karma is still remaining to be performed, there cannot be freedom from sorrow, nor can there be any happiness. Just as it is vain to treat someone dying of thirst by rubbing cold sandalwood paste on his feet, it is equally senseless to try to gain happiness by running after worldly pleasures. Therefore, one whose duty remains to be accomplished can never be happy. If a man's chest is badly injured by arrows, he will not enjoy the embrace of even the celestial damsels. How can one whose worldly duty is not over expect to gain happiness? How can the best of music and song bring cheer to the one who is in agony from an incurable disease? In reality, those who are free from the burden of their karmas are happy in the world. They are joyous sages. They are tranquil within and without. If one is burdened by karmas, how is it possible for him to be happy? If one is going to be hanged to death and is dishonored by a beautiful lay of sandalwood, will he be comforted? Oh, it is astonishing that a person who is caught in the snare of worldly obligations actually believes that this trap is prelude to happiness and contentiously carries out those duties. How can I honor people who consider themselves to be happy while burdened by innumerable obligations? Both an emperor and a beggar constantly search for peace and happiness. Their concepts of happiness are different. One is happy by acquiring kingdom and the other by receiving a coin. Both consider themselves to be blessed. Dropping this idea, shall I go to my revered Gurudev and request a solution to my problem? This is indeed an act of auspiciousness. The words of my Gurudev will help me cross the ocean of delusion. Parshuram set out immediately from Mount Mahendra to see his Gurudev. Soon he arrived at Mount Gandhamandana, and there he saw his master seated in the lotus posture like a self illuminate sun. He prostrated in front of his master's wooden sandals, then holding the sandals on his palm, he reverentially placed his head on them. Accepting Parshuram's reverential greeting with appreciation, Dattatreya lifted him with compassion and blessings and embraced him. Son, I am seeing you after a long time. How are you? Are you healthy? Received thus, Parshuram sat down on the cushion and after saluting his Gurudev reverentially began to speak. O Gurudev, ocean of compassion, how can one who has received your grace suffer from misery? I am fully protected by the shield of your grace. Then how can this cruel misery come near me? I feel your grace within and without. Separation from you is the only pain I have, and now, after being in your presence, that has vanished. But something has lingered in my heart for a long time. Because of that, my mind is always full of doubt. With your permission, may I ask you to resolve this? Hearing this, the compassionate Dattatreya joyfully said, O Parshuram, ask whatever questions you have. Delighted with your devotion, I will answer them happily. In this way, the dialogue between the sages Dattatreya and Parshuram ends in perfect harmony. This is called Jnanakhanda. Now, the sage Parshuram makes queries and his Gurudev replies. On receiving instructions from his Gurudev, Parshuram bowed and inquired, O Lord, my spiritual master, knower of all, compassionate one, you know that many years ago I became enraged with the members of the royal family. 21 times I destroyed the ego and killed all the Kshatriya kings of the world. It was done for a specific reason. I pleased my ancestors by doing this. My ancestors became happy. Receiving instructions from my ancestors, I became calm. During those days, Rama, the incarnation of Vishnu, was at Ayodhya. In my pride, I created a serious conflict with him. Lord Rama defeated me. He was kind hearted and a great devotee of the Brahmins. Therefore, he spared my life. After the defeat, I became disgusted with the world and repented. On the way home, suddenly I met the sage Samvarth. He was completely covered by ashes, exactly as ambers are covered. It was difficult to recognize him. His company gave me immense relief and a sense of abiding peace, just as a mist refreshes a man overheated by midday sun. I asked how he maintained this state of tranquility. He imparted the essence of all scriptures and spiritual teachings, but just as a beggar has no capacity to receive the immense treasure of the goddess Lakshmi, similarly, I could not assimilate the knowledge he imparted to me. When I again requested him to instruct me, he sent me to you. In the end, I have come to your lotus feet. In your presence, I feel happiness, as an ignorant person feels joy in the company of the wise. Though I did not grasp whatever Seer Samvarth told me, I listened as you described the glory of Tripura. This enabled me to develop faith and devotion in her worship. You are a symbol of the goddess Tripura. That symbol is always in my heart. In this state of mind, what fruits will I not receive? But even so, please explain what the sage Samvarth told me so many years ago, because without that knowledge, I cannot be satisfied. Without understanding his teachings, everything I do seems to be like a play of a child. Long ago, I worshipped the god Indra and the other devas, and in those ceremonies gave them costly gifts and grains. But I heard from Samvarth that the fruits of these pious actions are of little value. If they are insignificant, will I be sorrowful? Not only is the absence of happiness painful, but pain mingled with joy is also painful. The path of rituals does not help one face his great fear, and even greater fear is the fear of death, and there is no escape. Even though I am engaged in the practice of Tripura, I feel this fear because the way I worship Tripura, the mother goddess, is not satisfying. It is like the play of my mind. Therefore, I regard it as a child's play. The way you instructed me to worship goddess is contradictory to other scriptures. The way rituals are performed differ from each other. Apart from that, rituals differ according to the deity through which one worships. And there are various ways of worship. Therefore, when a ritual is performed incorrectly, it does not give fruits exactly the way fruits are obtained by the fire ceremony. If the entire ritual is false, then how can it lead to truth? Furthermore, these rituals are never ending. But I observed that the revered sage Samvarth was fully tranquil and completely free from the desire for self gratification. He seemed to be completely free and in a state of bliss. He followed the path of fearlessness. He looked like an elephant sitting quietly in a forest pool in the midst of a conflagration. How did he attain that stage which he talked about to me? Please, Gurudev, tell me the secret. I am burdened by worldly obligations and responsibility. Please rescue me. Saying thus, Parshuram placed his head at his master's feet to express his gratitude and respect. The sage Dattatreya recognized his disciples' inspired state and realized that he was at last prepared to undertake the path of enlightenment. The compassionate sage Dattatreya responded, "My son, your mind is fully purified. Attaining such a high state is like a drowning man who encounters a boat. By performing sadhana and having devotion, great people attain a highly auspicious state. Mother Divine, though formless, assumes a form and can manifest herself for the sake of her devotee, and by enlightening him can give freedom from the bondage of death. As long as one is not free from the evil of his karma, he is not happy. He remains disturbed, as if on the verge of death. How can one whose every limb is burning with poison be happy? The whole world is overwhelmed by this sense of duty and remains senseless and blind. Therefore, people of the world are not aware of what is good for them. Without knowing the ultimate goal of life, human beings blindly perform their actions and thus keep walking in the darkness of ignorance. Actions performed blindly simply perpetuate the cycle of birth and death. Once upon a time, some hungry travelers were searching for a fruit on Mount Vindhya. Believing they had found some cashews, they ate poison fruit instead, which made them extremely thirsty. Suffering from the effects of this poisonous fruit, these ignorant travelers then searched for something to quench their thirst, and mistaking some intoxicating fruit for grapefruit, ate them too. Disoriented by the effects of these intoxicating fruits, they lost their way. Some fell into ditches and the others were injured. Thorns pricked them. They blamed each other for their mishaps and started fighting. Covered with wounds, they finally arrived at a city. It was midnight by the time they reached the town gate. The gatekeepers would not allow them to enter. Oblivious to time and place, they fought with the guards and were badly beaten. Again, running here and there, some fell into a deep moat and were trapped and eaten by crocodiles. Several fell into pits or wells and died. Only a few escaped. Similarly, people of the world run after tantalizing objects, constantly inviting misery, but in their delusion, they persist in their race towards destruction. Parshuram, you are very fortunate. That is why these earnest inquiries have arisen in your heart. Vikara and tranquility are the first rung on the ladder of the highest attainment. To attain tranquility is essential. How can one gain auspicious height without it? Negative thoughts are like death. Only by understanding the auspicious goals will people stop running after trivial objects and finally become victorious. The demons who roam in the night go to destruction because of their negativity, while the devas, because of their positive attitudes, become deserving of happiness. Those having calm minds surrender themselves to Lord Vishnu and remain victorious over their enemies. Positive thoughts causes joy. In the same way that a seed sprouts into a leafy tree, with positive thoughts, a man goes ahead of others, and because of his positive power, Brahma is considered to be higher. Because of his positive power, Vishnu is worshipped everywhere. Through his positive brilliance, Lord Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma is all in all. Though Rama, prince among men, was deceived by Marich and suffered heavily, later, by using the strength of his positivity, he created a bridge across the ocean and conquered Lanka, the city of demons. This has been explained to you. Negative thought feeds the ego, and that is why Brahma had to lose one of his heads. Similarly, Lord Mahesh, in his spontaneity, gave a boon to Bhasmasur and disturbed, ran from one place to another. By not using his positive power, Vishnu killed the wife of Sir Bhrigu. Bhrigu cursed him and he had to suffer. Similarly, many demons, devas, and human beings, under the influence of negativity, had to face problems. O Parashuram, blessed are those who maintain tranquility of mind in all situations. Those revered ones should be adored. For lack of positive thought, people perform their duties and remain caught in the snare of delusion. Thus, they become victims of innumerable miseries. For ages, human beings have been caught in the web of negative thinking. As long as they are under the influence of that negative power, how can they think positively? How can one find cool water in a burning desert? Without spiritual means, how can one think harmoniously when his mind is negative and scattered? There is only one spiritual sadhana to overcome this problem. For building that positive attitude, there is only one way, and that is higher than the other means. Discrimination dawns through the grace of Tripura. Without the grace of the one who dwells in the inner chambers of the heart, on the lotus therein, how can anyone attain the blissful state? The light of consciousness will dispel the darkness of ignorance, and the means to attain it is devotion with firm faith. The Great Mother Divine is the subject of worship when, by her grace, she is seen as self-illumined one in the depth of the heart. The Supreme Goddess is identical with one's own self, the knower of all, the most resplendent, pure consciousness, and the embodiment of auspiciousness. After being initiated by a realized master, one follow the path sincerely and systematically. On the path of spirituality, devotion and faith are essential. O Parshuram, I have already taught you the rare scripture on the grace of Tripura, which is the root of this knowledge. By hearing her extolled, you attained her grace, the root of all goodness. Therefore, you will have no fears at all in the world. As long as positive thinking does not arise, a person remains fearful in daily life. Even after the cause of fear is removed, some degree of fear still persists, just as a person recovering from a serious hallucinatory disease still suffers from weakness. However, the purpose of life is accomplished when one develops the capacity to discriminate and is always aware of his spiritual goal. If, after achieving human birth, one fails to cultivate positive thinking, the tree of human life does not bear fruit, just as a barren woman does not give birth to a child. Success is attained by positivity. Those who are devoid of positive thought are narrow in their thinking, like frogs in a well. A frog born in a well lives without knowing the difference between day and night. Similarly, a human being without a positive attitude takes birth uselessly. He is not aware of what is beneficial or harmful for him. He goes through the rounds of birth and death again and again without trying to discover what is truly beneficial. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Moodhamate bhaja govindam. Under the influence of ignorance, he mistakes pain for pleasure and pleasure for pain. Thus, he is continually burned by the flames of worldly desires. People suffer, but never seek an end to suffering. A female donkey kicks the male again and again, yet he still follows her. Similarly, people lead their lives in the world. Thus, O Parashuram, people do not renounce the world. You are endowed with pure intellect and you have crossed the ocean of delusion. Here ends chapter 2 with the dialogue between the great adept Sri Dattatreya and sage Parshuram. Om Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat.